Hello, hello, everybody. Come on in. Welcome to the webinar. We're super excited to have everybody. This is Ben. I'm with Curate. Curate is a platform for wedding and event professionals to help them build out their proposals and put all those pieces together on the back end and the front end. And we are going to be joined today by Uche. Uche, how's it going?
How's it going?
Going good. I'm loving those velvet. Are those velvet chairs back there?
Oh yeah, they are.
They're cool. I like them. They look comfy.
Thank you. How's it
How
going?
you doing?
You know. Take a wild guess.
I am gonna guess that things are uneventful, relaxing, and I don't even know the next
I
one
don't know
because
about
I
the
know it's not.
relaxing part. Uneventful, yes. Relaxing, no.
Yeah.
But
It's an interesting time. Good. We're glad we're hanging in there. We're excited to have you chat with us. This has been our last couple of weeks have been great. We've been able to talk a little bit, get previews of people doing different sessions and doing different educations. But one of the things that we were able to do with you is kind of talk about this upcoming session via IG Live. So very excited to have you join with us and talk to us a little bit about kind of what's going on. Obviously, you're in the thick of it as far as what's happening with weddings and events for 2020 and some of the learnings you probably have for 2021. And I think the people that came in today, they're really curious about what you're doing and maybe learn some different things from you and kind of what you're doing. But with that being said, I've already given an intro. I'm Ben with Curate. We're a wedding and event professional software to help out people just on the front end and the back end of event execution. Uche is one of our customers, and she just does an incredible job of everything from smaller weddings to just that elevated level, the next level, just to see, wow, making dreams become reality. Uche, you want to give a little introduction about what you do and who you are?
Of course. Hi, I'm Uche Ojunta with Designs by Uche. I'm the lead designer and owner of Designs by Uche. We're based in Washington, D.C. area, Maryland specifically. And we do floral and event design for weddings and social events and corporate events. But the bulk of what we do is for weddings. What else? I'm an educator. I like to educate along the process. So I've been doing a lot of Insta stories, trying to get my feet wet in the education part of things. And apparently people want more. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to share my insights and whatever knowledge I have with everyone.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now, people are just longing for that education. You know, there's not too much out there. You know, there's a lot of it out there, but I think there's never enough. You know, there's so much to be said about what's happening, and it changes day by day. So really appreciate you being that voice kind of in our industry, one of the many voices of like education, like, hey, this is what's happening. I think one of the biggest things that people are going to be looking at is like, how do I deal with this? Like, what should I do in this instance? And I think one of the biggest things that you'll probably preface, but I'll preface as well, is like, this is not a one size fits all. Everyone's a little bit different with restrictions, what they're going through. So just a preface to everybody, make sure you are checking with your local area to make sure you are following the restrictions, because you don't want to take anything that we say as it relates to maybe Uche or the Midwest in St. Louis. Check and just be thorough and due diligent about that. But with that being said, Uche, let's jump right in. We have some questions, if you're good with some questions. And I think one of the biggest things that people are trying to figure out how to do and really what to do as we move into 2021 is, what's the biggest shift going from, you know, these full scale weddings that we've been doing pre-March, moving to like the smaller ones, the more intimate ones during the pandemic? Like what do you see the biggest shift with that and biggest learning that you've had?
Well, I think for me, what I've seen obviously is guest size, reduction in there, and just being flexible with the services that we offer. You know, usually we have an event minimum that I had to like table for a little bit, because, you know, everyone isn't going to be able to meet that minimum if they're only having 10 guests or 50 guests. So it's just being flexible and offering services that I would not have offered if I was, you know, busy doing full scale weddings. So also just figuring out how to still be profitable, even though you're doing smaller events, just figuring out a way to just upsell. I know it's difficult right now for people to want to spend that much money when they're not having a big event, but just being able to strategically offer things to them and just kind of market yourself in such a way that they can't say no. Whether it's saying, hey, you know what, you only have 20 people. What if we do a huge, arch at the altar or something, and just imagine what your photos are going to look like with all your guests. They might be thinking, oh, I just want something small. But then when you start showing them photos of things that could be possibilities that they could have, that's also ways that you can upsell. And so that's just thinking outside the box, thinking of ways to make them want to make the day special, even though they're not having a big crowded wedding or event. So
Yeah, no, and that's great. And I think that's one of the biggest things right now is people, traditionally, clients have come to a florist and they've said, okay, what's going on? Or like, this is my vision. Like, how do I do this? They really look to florists to be that guide, to be that guiding force of like, okay, what can be done? What does this look like? Or even kind of taking that and going a step further. I think one of the best things about a team and collaboration is whenever someone can say, I love that idea. In fact, let's do this on top of it and kind of elaborate.
right.
Do you find that a lot of clients kind of do come in and they're like, okay, like this is kind of what I want. And then you say, oh, great. Well, we can take that and we can do this. Or even, hey, have you even thought about doing this a little bit more? Do you feel like a lot of people, when they come to you, just really don't know the fullness that you can achieve and you just kind of have to guide them?
Definitely. Because they come to, when they come to florists or come to me, they're coming to me maybe because they saw something on my page or somebody referred them to me. And obviously they took that step because, they want us to provide services for them. And so I now have to put on my thinking hat on and my business cap on and say, you know what, let's make some more money here and say, hey, what if we did this? Let's take it a step further and do something else for your event that's unique and special and still memorable. I think I touched a little bit about it during our IG live, saying that even though it's not a big party, it's still a day that, they're both going to remember for the rest of their lives. It's the day that they actually got married. So making the day special, making it count. And, they're going to have photos and things like that, just making it still not, even though it's a micro wedding, don't make it micro. If that's, and for lack of a better way to put it, micro wedding, macro style. How about that?
I like that. Macro weddings in a micro world.
Yeah.
No, that's very interesting because you're right. And you talked about this a little bit before. That's still their wedding day. They're still going to have an anniversary and that day is still going to be remembered for 50 years. So how do you still make that? Making it more about the moment that you made during COVID rather than saying, oh, 50 years ago we got married in COVID. Instead, say 50 years ago we got married and it was incredible. Oh yeah, that was the year for COVID.
Exactly. And not calling it a COVID wedding. I hate that
Second
term.
thought, because that experience.
Yeah, when people say COVID wedding, I'm like, I just cringe because I'm like, it's not a COVID wedding. It's just COVID is what's happening, but don't make it the center of the, we're magnifying COVID so much. I'm not trying to say, we should diminish it or belittle it or whatever, but it's like, yeah, there are other things still happening that are good and just don't label it, oh, my COVID wedding. No, it's your wedding.
Yeah. People are still falling in love and getting married and executing that special magical day. It may look slightly different than in their mind, or it could actually be delivered exactly like they imagined it.
Right.
When you do have people that come to you and are like, oh, we have to change some different things. How do you kind of walk them through that? How do you guide them through that? Is it more like you pull out the Pinterest board, or you just pull out old work that you've done, or you just have some ideas and you just kind of spitball with them? Like, what does that consultation process look like?
Well, first of all, I asked them, take into consideration the venue. Where are they getting married? Like, because I could dream up different things, but if it doesn't work for the venue, then it doesn't work for the venue. But that's the first thing I ask them. Like, and I look at the space and I say, okay, here are some of the things that I think we can do based on the architectural structure or whatever is around or where the venue is. And so I just kind of guide them through the design process. And if it's a venue I've worked at before, I'll pull out photos of different things that we've done at that venue and say, hey, what if we did something like this, here? And then I do renderings for them sometimes. That always sells them. When I do a rendering of what I can actually create in that exact venue. And they're like, wow, okay, I want this, you know what I mean? And so that really, I feel like that's really what sells our services more than Anything that I can think of is when I actually do a rendering, because it just makes them see it as theirs. You know what I mean? Like they can pull Pinterest boards and things like that, but to actually see the design sketched and rendered in their actual venue is it just brings it all together for them, and it literally sells us. Like it's one of the biggest investments I did in our business is just figuring out how to do renderings. And so yeah, and you just kind of showing them how to what they can have. Obviously budget is a big factor, right? If they're saying, well, I don't want to spend that much money, I'm like, okay, I just want a bouquet. I'm like, I have to respect that. Okay, fine, you just get a bouquet, no problem. But if just getting to know the customer and knowing if that's a customer that you can sell more, like you just have to have those kind of conversations, be it whether you do a questionnaire or if you have a phone consultation with them, which is what I usually do, is a phone consultation, just kind of feel each other out and see where their mind is. If they're still thinking of making it special and memorable, as opposed to, oh, I just want to go to the court and get married. And I'm like, okay, well, we can make a bouquet and, keep it moving. But then if I can get that feeling that this is a client who is highly disappointed they can't have that big wedding, but they still want it to feel like it's a memorable day, then I start to upsell and get them excited. And I feel like when I start to upsell, they get more excited about it. It doesn't make it feel like, oh, I'm just settling for this, wedding that I'm doing. But, as I continue to talk about the different things we could do, I start to see the excitement building. And before I know it, they're like, yeah, let's do that,
Yeah. Well, I love too that upselling is not just for your bottom line as a business person. It's really to add on. It's really add-ons at the end of the day. Like it's upsell from a financial standpoint, but it's really about adding more excitement to that day. And I think sometimes just with what we've seen with talking to florists, sometimes people are a little timid to do like an upsell or an add-on or something like that. But really at the end of the day, if you do it right and you're tactful about it, which I think everyone is, and they know that, as long as you do that, it's only adding value to that event and to that special day. So I love the way that you approach that and understanding that adds excitement for them too, as you add those different pieces. Oh, that's great. And two, anyone that joined a little bit late, we do have chat and Q&A. So if you do have any questions for Uche as you're walking through, feel free to put those in the bottom and we'll be consolidating those as well and addressing those too. We have a couple questions for her already, but we'd love to hear from the audience as well. Let's talk a little bit about rebookings and rescheduling. Obviously, that's been a topic on everyone's mind, and coming into flu season, it could be on the top of someone's mind about, hey, how does this look? How do people handle rebookings and reschedulings? What lessons have you learned during the past several months with rebookings, and like how do you plan on doing things either differently or the same as we move into 2021 and some of these rebooking situations potentially?
Right. Well, so one of the biggest things that I try to do is encourage them to rebook as opposed to cancel. I was very, lucky that my contract initially didn't have anything about COVID or anything, but before COVID hit, it had my cancellation policy and my postponement policy. And so, which was pretty tight. I was like, if you cancel, you lose your money. So, you might as well rebook. And so that kind of deterred a lot of my clients from canceling. And, obviously I sent out emails to everyone, just say, hey, just touching base. I know what's happening and I know that this is all out of our control. And here are the things that we're doing to help you, to help them figure out next steps. So we created a page on our website that we call COVID resources. And it basically shows them, all the different steps that they need to take. First, contact your venue, reschedule a date. Once you have a date in mind, we have our 2021 calendar on that page to check our calendar, see if we're available. If we're available, then send us an email and say, this is the date that I've booked with the venue. Next step for me is then I will send them a rescheduling agreement. And once I send them that agreement, then once they review it and sign it, then I can go back in and then update their contract with the new date. And I was pretty flexible. A lot of venues in the DC area and some vendors were charging a rescheduling fee. But, I don't think it's fair to do that, but, that's their business. So I basically said, if you pick a date that is 1 year from your original date, I'm not going to charge you any extra fee. But anything outside of that, obviously I have to apply my 2021 rate. And they appreciated that. So I think just being understanding as a vendor, as a florist, and letting them know that, hey, I'm here for you. I kept, just touching base. I think a lot of people, and not just clients, even people, employees, that not my employees, but like freelancers that I've spoken to, one of the things that they said that really hurt them was that the people they worked for just never got in touch. And it was really hurtful that they never heard back. And all of a sudden they were out of a job and, nobody contacted them and things like that. And I was like, it just felt really sad for me to hear that. So for me, it's just reaching out to my clients. Hey, just saying, hey, I'm just touching base. I know things are tough, but I'm here if you have any questions, or this is what we're doing and things like that. I think that gives them confidence to know that this business cares about them and not just about the money, but we genuinely care about them as a couple, knowing that they're not, we understand what they're experiencing and we're trying to be flexible and helpful for them if they need us to be. And I think just, again, being flexible, I can't emphasize that enough in this time, is really, really key because we're all in this together. So.
I love that aspect, the flexibility. It's the combination of the two. I'm not even sure which one's more important, but it's like the flexibility and just the communication, or just the attention. I think when everything hit, everyone was kind of nervous. It's like, don't poke the bear kind of situation, where like you don't want to get into it if you don't have to get into it, but then the customer is waiting for you to contact them, and then they would contact you. So it's like, hey, there is no way to over communicate during this time, and being flexible with them. I think those two, over communicating and being flexible, kind of like what you're saying, I think those are the big things that people are realizing, like, hey, it may be uncomfortable to address it head on, because we all don't really know what the end of this looks like, or kind of what the future looks like. But if we can take it one step at a time, I think that's huge for the client, and they deserve that. And I think one of the great things about you is that you did realize that early on, and you said, oh, this is something that we need to address pretty quickly head on.
Yeah. I mean, I think also the part of the communication, it allows them to know that you're still in business, because a lot of people are no longer in business. And if they don't hear from you, they're like, oh my God, we've not heard from him or her. It's like, are they still in business? What's going on? Is my money gone? So just touching base and be like, hey, I'm still here, gives them that vote of confidence that, okay, this business is still, it's still legit. And,
yeah,
my money's not gone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big deal for everybody. So I get that. I had someone chat in about the links. The rescheduling link, I can put that here. You can look at that if you guys want to see what the rescheduling link looks like for everybody. I'll go ahead and throw it in the chat to everybody. And then in addition, I have someone actually helping out on the side. In addition to that, you said there was like a COVID resource. Did you just do that, Uche, for the time being, or is that still out there on your website for the future?
It's basically that page that you just put out, the wedding rescheduling guide. It's that entire page. That's what we created for them. Our rescheduling agreement is housed separately. So this page that you just sent out, it says updated July. I need to update that. But this is basically just telling them, hey, this is what's going on, step 1, step 2, step 3. And then when they look at the dates, they see our availability. And then they send us an email when they see that it's a date that we're available. And then we do send them the rescheduling agreement that's done separately through Honeybook. And once that's signed, then I go in, lock in that new date, then I update the floral decor contract with that new date. And in my, I also had to update my floral contract that I got with an attorney, because obviously I'm sure everybody was doing the same thing. Like, hey, I need to be covered. So I got an attorney, and I included a few clauses in the contract so that they see, and that's, so now anybody who's rescheduling automatically gets an updated contract that includes all the updates that I made. And they have to sign that contract to say, okay, I'm in agreement with, since it's basically a new contract because it's a new date. So they have to sign that as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you actually brought up the contract too. I was going to ask you, one of the questions was, how has your contract changed? You mentioned a couple clauses. Number one, we always recommend reaching out to a lawyer or a legal person in your area just to make sure it does pass that sniff test, so to speak. Uche, what kind of clauses, very high level, did you want to add, or did you need to add to yours?
I had to add a force majeure, I think is what it's called.
Hmm.
I had to add, I mean, I had a postponement policy, but I had to make it more detailed what my postponement policy is. And I had to include, you know, different things about like, okay, if you, the cost, like additional changes and additional material, like 12 months. Remember I mentioned earlier, like if they postpone, they're okay with the same rate for 12 months and anything outside of that, then I'm charging additional fees. So I had to include all of that in my postponement policy. And then cancellation too was another clause that I had before, but I had to make that tighter and like be more specific. What entails my cancellation? What do they lose in terms of if they canceled, you know, what they're still responsible for, you know, based on if they canceled 180 days before, which is what, 6 months, versus if they cancel 30 days, like what are the repercussions based on when they cancel. But yeah, I had my contract reviewed by, I can't remember her name, but she's the owner of Perfect, Kumbi Odubogun. I think she has a new legal, she's an attorney, but she has a new I think it's called Legally Set, I believe. Don't quote me. I have to look it up on Instagram.
Okay.
But she was the one who reviewed my contract and added things to it because she's in the event industry. She owns Perfect, formerly Isle Perfect. I don't know if you've heard of them. So she runs that blog, and she's an attorney, and so she knows the event world. And so I had her review my contract, and she was very thorough, you know, with things like that. But I can look up her information and I can send that to you later if anyone needs it.
Yeah, we can send that out. That'd be great. Yes. Especially if she can handle outside of the state that she's in. That's incredible, because I think a lot of times people are like, ooh, who do I find for this? Or what kind of attorney do I need? Or what legal person? Because everyone can be a lawyer. Like, it's like, okay, like who do I pick to make sure it's very wedding specific? And I think that's
Right.
great to have a good resource for that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Her Instagram is Legally Set. I can type it in here.
Cool. That'd be great.
That's her Instagram. But you can reach out to her. She does all sorts of contracts. I think she's based in Pennsylvania, but she can, you know, review. I think she's licensed in different states. I don't remember. But
No, that's great.
she reviewed it. Yep.
Everyone reach out to Legally Set if you have any questions about like specifics, or if you're looking for someone to help out with that. That's perfect. I know you talked a little bit about the contract process. Walk us through the sales process. And I got a spider outside on my face, and I don't like spiders. So sorry, I squished a spider.
No worries.
Sorry, everyone. Walk me through how your sales process has evolved. Maybe like in the past versus like today. Maybe the sales process, what it was in the past versus what it is now.
It's still a little bit of the same. I still go through a vetting process for everyone. First, they fill out a contact form on our website. If they send me an email, I still send them back through that contact form, just because the contact form links to Honeybook, and it's just more organized for me to keep track of things. So first they fill out the contact form, and then if it's a micro wedding, I had to add something on my contact form that said micro wedding, so that I know that this is a micro wedding as opposed to a full wedding. And then after I read the contract, which, you know, the inquiry rather, because once they fill out the form, I get an email, I read it. Then I reach out and schedule a phone call for like 30-minute phone call. Mm-hmm. To get a better understanding of what they need, and things like that. And then from there, I'm pretty good at gauging, I think, because I've done this so long. 30-minute phone call is all I need for a micro wedding. I don't need a full on, well, not for everybody. There's some clients who are doing big, elaborate micro weddings, and obviously that takes more. So I do the 30 minutes. I get to understand what they want. Then if I feel like this deserves like an event design or a full-on scale proposal or something, then I would I'll work on the design, and I'll schedule another call, which is a video call, which I then do a proposal presentation. And during my proposal presentation, it's very detailed. Like I said, I do renderings, I do let them know what it is. That's my proposal presentation is really my selling feature for me. And once they see my renderings and see what it is that I can do for them, I think that just seals the deal for me for most of the, especially my high-end clients. And so then from there, we have Curate, which we use for our contracts, our proposal creation, and things like that. And so I send them that proposal in Curate for them to make their payment and review the contract. And that really is how we seal the deal for a lot of our events. And then we always do a site visit for an event. If it's an event that we're actually going to set up tables or do like a reception or a cocktail or something, I always like to do a site visit. If it's just a ceremony look or a ceremony that we're just providing flowers for, I don't typically do a site visit because it's a ceremony, and if I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the venues in the area. So that's usually what it is. But Curate is really big in helping us like keep everything organized, that's where I create the proposal. That's what tells me how much that client's event is going to cost when I go in there and I put all their information in, create the recipes and things like that. And I can now take that cost and transfer it into my design presentation. And then once they're like, okay, I like how this is going, then I send them the Curate proposal to sign.
That's great. Yeah, and I think you mentioned something about the inquiry form. I know you've been with us now for, I guess we met back in February, since right before COVID. We even have too that inquiry form that can live on your website. So when someone fills that out and comes into Curate too. So that's been huge too from a sales process. Yeah, making sure you handle those inquiries that come in. I think that's huge. And I love your process of kind of walking the client through that and really being that guide again. I feel like if I was one of your clients, you do just a great job of really walking me through every step and making sure I understood it. So I love the way you handle that. That sounds good.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw that with the contact. I'm still learning Curate, so it's
yeah. No, you're good.
I'm still learning all the things because it's such a wonderful software and it offers a lot. So I'm still learning, okay, what can I do with this? And, in between when things slow down and I'm like, okay, I can literally go in there. And like, I literally was just chatting with Bria in Curate before I got on this call because I was like, hey, how do I find this? Yeah. So I'm still, but I'm going to check that out because I did see there was a way I could create forms in Curate. I just haven't really gone into it, but I do need to like take some time and go through that.
Yeah, even if it's just the video, if you just want to say, hey, shoot me the video, I can look at it at my own time. We have some videos and you can have multiple forms, whether it's one that lives on your website or one that you send to your client, like a questionnaire. Yeah. And then all that info can feed into Curate, so you don't have to worry about retyping any information there too.
That's key because I do a questionnaire, but I do it through Honeybook and then I have to retype it into Curate. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I need to.
We got you. Yeah, we'll get it figured out with you. No, that's great. To that point, what are your favorite tools and resources that you use weekly? It could be software, it could be just something techie, it can be a resource, could be a cup of coffee for all I care. But like, what are your favorite go-tos, tools, and resources that you use on a weekly basis?
Oh God, for Curate, I'm always in Curate. Instagram.
That's a tool for sure.
Instagram for sure. Curate, Instagram, Amazon. What else do I use? Resources. That's interesting. It depends on what I'm working on that week, actually. My resources change. I use Canva a lot to create things. What else? God,
do you have any like client-facing resources? So I see a question here, a little bit about the free resource that you have for your prospective clients on your website. What do you put on your website and help with clients?
Repeat that question. I don't think I fully understand.
No, you're good. The question is, tell us a little bit more about the free resource you have for prospective clients on your website, and how do you use that for bookings? It looks like you may have a pop-up or something, maybe somewhere on your website. Yeah.
So I use that, really that's for email marketing. That's,
cool.
I have that resource to keep in touch with clients or visitors who have visited my website who have not decided that they want to reach out or book yet. So that pop-up, it's really for me to grab their attention. It's something that I use to grab their emails and to keep in touch, by sending like newsletters out to subscribers. And you have to give something when you're asking somebody for their email. So I figure, that's one of the rules of email marketing is you give before you ask. And so my give is, hey, get this, guide on what to think about when you're thinking about wedding flowers. And it's a pretty detailed guide of, when they subscribe and sign up and they get it in their email. And a lot of people love it. They're like, oh, never really thought about this. I've even had like event planners sign up for it. And they're like, oh, and one of the things I have on there is, I don't want to give all my tips away because I want people to sign up, is, just things to think about when you're deciding what the cost of your flowers are going to be, for example, jewel tone colors. If you want your wedding to be jewel tone and you want your flowers to be jewel tone, consider having a budget that's big enough to accommodate a jewel tone, because that's more expensive than if you were to do white flowers or nude flowers, things like that. So just things that a lot of couples or clients don't think about when they're selecting their colors, and they don't understand why flowers cost what they cost. So I just kind of put that out there, 5 tips on what to think about for your wedding flowers.
Yeah, I love that too. And I think that's one of those things, email marketing is definitely, it's common in the world today, but I think within the industry specifically, I love that you kind of gravitated towards that to kind of walk them through that process with newsletters and things like that. Any more things besides newsletters, downloads? Do you do like blogs and stuff?
Yeah, my blog is so outdated. But I do have downloads. I've collaborated with Florist Society to do a lot of, video tutorials, and that have like a recipe sheet and a guide so that they see like stem counts. And I think I sent you one. Sorry, I saw your email right before this call.
No, you're
and
good.
I sent you one, like a resource that I do. I do a lot of, like I said, I'm still in the getting my feet wet in the education world, but I do a lot of tips and tricks. Like when we're doing a production for a wedding, and while we're working and I'm kind of showing people tips and tricks and on my Insta stories, then I also put it on my highlights on Instagram. And I think I call it BTS or something, I don't remember, behind the scenes, so that people can kind of look back at the story and kind of, oh, that's how you did that, or okay, that's pretty cool. I'm working on I don't know what to call it, like a one-on-one masterclass. Not a masterclass, but one-on-one, I don't know, tutorial for people who local or who want to travel in. It's up to them if they want to travel during COVID. I'm working on that now that things are slowing down, because I've been getting a lot of inquiries for it. And I was actually supposed to have a workshop in April, but then COVID happened. So we had to cancel that. Wow. So I'm working on something more that's more intimate, more micro tutorial. Since micro seems to be the word of the year.
I love that. I love these little like education one-on-ones, micro workshops. I think that's a smart idea. And I love that. I mean, people are looking for ways to learn a little bit more. So I'm glad you're offering that too. And yeah, you mentioned a little bit about the recipe. Yeah, we're going to be working on giving everyone a sample of one of Uche's recipes too, to see kind of how she does things with stem counts and things like that. More coming on that. But yeah, I just saw that before I hopped in. So excited to share that with our audience and have more people really get to see those mechanics behind it, because that's one of the things that I always see in the forums and different things on socials. Like someone's always like, oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I think one of the biggest things is we know that community is more important than the competition aspect. Right. Like even if someone has the exact recipe, it's still going to look very different than you from a style standpoint. So
yeah, it's funny, that recipe that I sent you, I think I've shared it with a couple of people, and I've seen them try to recreate it, and I was like, yeah, it just shows me that everyone's eye is so different. Like it's the exact same recipe, and I could see that they used it a little bit different than how I did it. So I was like, oh, this is so cool. But it's inspiring when I see how people use that recipe, and just kind of tells me that we're all different. Like even if I was to create that exact same design and that's my recipe, it probably would not look exactly like that, just because. And that's one of the things as a floral designer I try to tell my clients, like, you have to understand that I can't even replicate my own work. So don't expect me to replicate someone else's work. Like I have to be in the same time, same mental space, same everything to replicate it exactly that way. And so one of the things that I have in my contract, and one of the things that I'm upfront with my clients, is that you're trusting me and my artistic ability to do what's best for your event. So don't hold me to the photo and say, hey, well, this is the photo, I want it to be exactly like this. No.
Yeah.
You know,
It's fresh product and it's a different day. And yeah, completely get that.
exactly. Yeah.
I love that. What advice, we have a lot of florists that are just now starting. Some people have gotten laid off because of COVID. Some people are just like, they plan on coming in the industry at this time. What advice do you have for maybe a new florist that's just starting off in the industry?
Wow. It's really tough right now with the whole event industry and the climate that we're in. I think one of the things that I would advise is that they reach out to, if they're new, educate themselves, get as much education as possible. Now is a good time to do it. Flourish Society is very amazing with doing a lot of online education. Now is, like I said, a very good time to invest in that and just educate themselves as much as possible. And then as events start to pick up, as you start to see, you know, florists or other people who are getting busy, there's nothing wrong with reaching out to them and saying, hey, I would like to come freelance for you. I mean, I freelanced my first 2 years in business. That's literally, I took a workshop before I started, and then I freelanced my first 2 years. And that's really how I gained a lot of my hands-on experience. And be upfront when you're reaching out, like, hey, I don't really have a lot of experience, but I admire your work, and I feel like you would be somebody who's really great to work with. I would like to come freelance for you. But I would not advise anybody to freelance without getting educated first. I think it's important that you educate yourself, get that education first, so that way you have at least something to contribute. Because there's nothing as frustrating to a florist who's trying to produce an event and there's somebody on the staff who has no clue what they're doing. So you probably will get sent home and not asked to come back. So just educating yourself with all the resources that's available right now is key. And then, you know, if you're starting out, I honestly say freelance. I honestly think it's very important, whether you're still building your business, but freelancing while building your business is really important, because you really get to see how it works in the event world. Like, then you get to really realize, okay, do I really want to be a business owner, or do I really like freelancing? Because it's very different when you're handling the flowers and design and I'm like, oh my God, this looks beautiful. But when you have to start running a business and dealing with clients and dealing with staff and dealing with vendors and things like that, it can be really stressful. So I think that really does help. It's kind of like, you know, when they say you're in college, get an internship. That I feel like freelancing is like the internship that sets you up. Say, okay, I really can do this. I really can be a business owner, or I really like flowers enough to keep doing this, because you get to see, you know, while you're freelancing, the amount of hours, the amount of time that you have to invest in an event and things like that. And then you get to decide if this is really something you want to do. So that's one of my biggest advice for those starting out. And then another thing I want to say,
both those are great. I think that's,
yeah, another thing I want to add is I always want to encourage new designers not to shortchange themselves. Don't undercut your pricing just because you feel like you're new. It's still a business. You're still in it to make money. You may not have as much experience or overhead as another designer, but understanding how to price really helps you as a new designer. And it also helps the market, because one of the things that is really frustrating for the floral industry is new designers who are coming in with no idea on how to price. And so it's misleading to the clients. It's misleading to the event industry, because they are setting unrealistic budgets because they think this is what things cost, because another designer has told them they could do it for such and such price, when in actuality, no, you can't do it for that price. So I think, and that's another thing, like, you know, just, even though you only have 1 year of experience, really understanding how to price your services is key to just staying profitable. And I think it also keeps, and I'm not saying that you're going to make a ton of money your first year, but at least it shows when you're making profit, it's encouraging for you to keep going, right? But if you're doing all this work and making no money, then you're just going to be exhausted. Literally, you're running a hobby. You're not running a business.
Yeah, and that's tough too with pricing what you're worth, right? It's like, how do you do that? There's so many opinions out there about markups and the percentage and things like that. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to see, that conversation around that. We have a blog if anyone wants to check it out too on our website about pricing what you're worth. And we don't say necessarily this is your market because San Francisco is obviously different than St. Louis, Missouri, but make sure you are asking around and trying to find out how to price your value, but also understand your value too, like Uche said. So I love that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, and then use Curate or Floral software. I mean, I know, like, when I signed up, I was like, whoa, I'm not making any money before. Because I was able to put in my recipe, and it told me how much I was supposed to charge, as opposed to just kind of throwing a number out there and guessing, right? So I think I really highly recommend that anybody starting out should invest in Curate or, just a floral pricing software. That way, you can set your markup whether you want 2%. I would not advise that. I would say start with 300% at least, whatever. But at least you have a software that tells you this is what you should charge. So when you feel yourself trying to shortchange yourself, you're like, oh no, the software says I should be charging $600. I can't. No, okay. So
it takes the emotion out of it. Well, that's one of the great things about software is like, hey, like, this is the markup. And when you put these two together, like, this is what you get. It's a $400 bouquet if you put all those stems in there. Like, I know you want to make it pretty and big, but you're going to have to tone it down. It's either one or the other. You can't have both.
Exactly.
And I love that. Keeps you honest. We actually just put a blog. Holly actually put a blog link in there if anyone wants to go check it out, how to work on the industry standard margins and profit markup. So check those out too. Some advice in there, but yeah, I think a software, regardless of Curate or Excel sheet or whatever makes sense for your business, find a way to be structured with that, to take that emotional side out of it, to say, okay, it's a business at the end of the day. Like, we got to make some money. We got to take care of our family before we can take care of someone else's floral budget markups and things like that. So that's been great.
And no is a very good answer. Don't be afraid to use the word no. And you don't have to explain yourself. Just say no.
And then people will say, oh, okay.
Okay.
It's like Shark Tank. You watch these Shark Tank episodes. I don't know if you watch them too.
Yeah,
but
I do.
It's like, they're like, no, I'm good with 25%. And they came in, they're like, are you sure you don't want to do 10? And they're like, no, 25. And I'm like, okay. I mean, it's okay to say no. It's
okay
just,
to say no.
You find the right clients, and you also understand your worth and really your worth to the industry. And if you hold firm on that, they'll be like, oh, maybe she is worth that 25% markup. So I think that's great. So definitely, that's great advice on that. Let's talk 2021. I mean, like, there's some exciting opportunities here, right? There are tons of ways to do things differently than we did in 2020. What are you most hopeful and excited for as we move into this new year?
Man, I'm hopeful that COVID it's going to go away. I'm sure as everybody wants, but let's be real. I feel like it's going to be with us for another year. I'm actually excited about micro weddings. I'm excited to see how they continue to be more elaborate, right? I'm excited to see clients embracing the concept of a luxury micro or macro wedding. I think that might be a term that comes up, a macro wedding, whatever that means. So I'm excited about that. I actually do enjoy the little wedding. I mean, I think that's the blessing in what this whole COVID event thing came. It really helped me to appreciate smaller, intimate events, right, for what they are. I feel like that's something that's going to continue, but we are still going to see, the bigger events. Obviously, people might not be willing to have bigger parties because your guests are going to say, you know what, COVID is still out there. I think I'm just going to decline and send you guys a gift or whatever, and that's okay. But I'm excited to see how micro weddings just evolve into luxury, grand. It's still intimate, but it looks, grand. So I'm excited to see that. And then hopefully we get back to bigger weddings. I mean, we're doing bigger weddings in Virginia, just not in Maryland or DC. We did I don't know if you follow, I'm sure you follow our Instagram. We've done 200 guest weddings this fall, but it's been in Virginia. So
Yeah.
so we'll see how that goes.
No, that's great. I mean, I'm glad it's picking up, especially with a little bit more of that guest count. Obviously, there are some elements of safety. So I was just talking to Braun right before this session, or a couple before this session, and he was talking about some things that he's done with his business to make sure they stay safe, and he's protecting his staff and his team, regardless of what the client wants. What questions, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in there. But one of the questions that I have is, what do you do, or how involved do you get with making sure to keep the safety of your team a priority as you are doing these larger events, or as you are doing these events as we're coming back into it?
Right. So one of the biggest, everyone has to wear a mask. That's a mandate from the state. So I have a sign even in my studio: don't come in if you don't have a mask on. Temperature checks, do temperature checks. But, you know, I think for us in the Maryland, DC area, we're used to wearing masks. Like literally, it's your business would get shut down if your employees are not wearing masks. Like they're very, very strict on that here. Like they will literally, they send out health, like inspectors, undercover inspectors to literally, yeah, they go to businesses to make sure that you're adhering to the PPE protocols. And if you're not, you get reported and you most likely will be shut down. So everyone has to wear a mask. A lot of venues here are also requiring that. Some venues will have do a temperature check, ask you questions and things like that. So my team, even when we're working in the studio, we all have masks on, and my studio is pretty big, so we can spread out as much as, you know, stay 6 feet apart if we have to. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we're doing to protect my staff, and just making sure that everyone is honest. If they don't feel good, don't come to work. It's okay. You're not gonna get fired. Yeah. Just don't come to work. It's okay. So, but yeah, we're pretty much, you know, we have hand sanitizers in all our trucks. You know, I keep one in my bag. I keep one in our toolbox. So everyone's sanitizing their hands. And I also have extra masks that I take with us for events in case anyone needs extras. But yeah, in the DC, Maryland area, we're very good about keeping our masks on and making sure it's on.
I love that. And I love how proactive you are about that, because the last thing you want is anyone coming in with COVID and having everyone have to be quarantined like that. You just can't do that, right? So right. I love the honesty, the openness, and everyone just doing their part to really help out as much as they can, because shutting down the business for 2 weeks at the wrong time is not a good thing. So I like how that culture, it's almost like a COVID culture, right? It's like how you guys do it as a company. It's the company culture that you've kind of embraced. So I love that too. Let's see, what other questions does anyone have? Let's see if we have any more questions. I've kind of been asking questions as they've come in. So this has been great. We're going to be sending out that recipe that we talked about. We'll send it out to all the attendees, and we'll probably throw it on social too, so you can see that. What other things, Uche, what other advice do you have for anybody that's a little nervous, or that's like, I'm not really sure how we're going to ramp back up, or that's maybe fearful of what's coming in 2021? Like what pieces are you hopeful? I guess what advice or encouragement can you give to anybody that's like, okay, are we going to make it into 2021?
I want to say keep the faith, keep working. I think keep putting yourself out there. Even though COVID hit this year, I think 2020 has been a huge year for us when it comes to exposure, which if anybody had told me, I would have been like, wait, what? And the reason being is because I kept, I had time to not just work for my business. I had time to work in my business and putting myself out there. I was, when the shutdown started, I started doing like tutorials that I would put on my IGTV and things like that. Like just keep putting yourself out there on social media, especially Instagram. I don't know, TikTok, I don't even know. But just keep putting yourself out there, keep working, keep the faith. There are people that are still booking, but if they don't see that you're active, they might be hesitant to reach out. So keep posting on Instagram, where be it Insta stories or your feed, doing both actually is advisable, so that they know, okay, this business is still they're working, they're still doing things. I notice usually the more I post on Instagram, the more inquiries I get, which is interesting. It's like a push button. And when I'm like, okay, I'm too busy, then I stop posting for a while and I post again. It's like, it's very interesting how that works, because people are seeing like, okay, but I will say, put your face out there. Like, literally, I can't even stress that enough. It's nice to post pretty pictures and everything, but the amount of inquiries and comments and things we get are from things that whenever I post my face or my voice or things like that, people just love that and they gravitate towards that. So keep putting yourself out there, keep the faith. We bounced back after the recession, 2008, 2009, or whenever that was. We're gonna bounce back here, but you just got to keep working and just keep the faith.
Yeah, I love that, and just that keep working aspect. I think Jennifer said the same thing at Flourish and Co. And just staying out there, staying in front of people. But to your point about putting your face out there, I know it's weird sometimes for people, and I get it. Like no one. Well, I say no one. A lot of people don't feel comfortable with that, but I think now more than ever, people want to connect with people, with strangers or someone they're going to work with, especially someone that's doing their wedding. They want to have that connection. So understand that no one's hair is ever perfect. Sometimes spiders land on your face during Zoom meetings. Like, it's okay. Like, it's part of it. And during that process, people find personality and see your true light shine. And I think that's one of the best things. One of the many things that we like about Uche is just your positivity and your attitude behind everything right now, and just you're a realist, but you're also very excited and hopeful about what's happening. So I think that is contagious, and I think that's why you get those clients over and over again, is because you are putting that out there. So
thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining. We don't have any other questions, so keep an eye out for the recording of this webinar. We're going to send it out, and we'll have Uche's recipe as well for you all to see some amazing work that she's done. And keep following her. Go to her website, check her out, and go to Designs by Uche on Instagram too, to learn a little bit more. Anywhere else that people can go, Uche, to keep up with you?
So I can be reached on all social, Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram, at Designs by Uche. I just put it up on there. And my website, I always feel like, don't be shy to reach out. Send me a DM if you have a question. I literally answer every single message that comes into my DM. I'm anal about that, and I don't like to see red on my
the notification.
I don't like that. So I'm pretty good at answering everything. I may not answer right away, but I will answer as soon as I can. So I always say, don't be afraid to reach out. If you have any questions, I'm open. And I thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate everything that Curate is doing for florists and the floral industry and the event industry. Really, Curate has been absolutely amazing since I joined in February, and I can't thank you all enough. So thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you, so appreciate that. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you again, Uche, for coming on here and giving your time and your incredible advice. Check out her Instagram, Designs by Uche, and her website. Learn more. Reach out to us if you have any questions about Curate, how we can help out. But thank you everyone for coming, and thank you again, Uche. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.